Oh, shit. Welcome to Flush Time. Just kidding. Okay, so I saw Jurassic World Dominion. And actually, I started watching all the previous Jurassic Park movies in anticipation and leading up to this newest movie because, you know, it's been a while since I've seen them and I really liked them and I wanted to rewatch them. So, you know, I'm in a good state of mind to compare this one to the older ones because I just watched them. And honestly, I don't think anything will top the first Jurassic Park, so that's off the table. But I don't think it was the worst of its own trilogy. Definitely not the worst of the franchise. I don't think it's better than any of the originals, honestly. Even though, like, Jurassic Park 3 is kind of cheesy too. This movie was also very cheesy, but it still had the soundtrack. It still had what I feel like was the heart of Jurassic World, and I think it delivered on some of what the Fallen Kingdom movie promised. I think it delivered on some of like what happens when we have to live amongst the dinosaurs. And I see a lot of people complaining about what turned into clearly like a James Bond and dinosaurs like first part of the movie. I honestly kind of liked that. I thought it was pretty neat. I think it wasn't very important and it wasn't necessary, but I enjoyed it for what it was. And you know, that's kind of how I look at this whole movie. I just enjoyed it for what it was. It was very cheesy. I mean, there's literally a part where the dinosaur, the T-Rex, walks through a circle and forms the franchise logo. I'm like, it's like a facepalm moment, but for me, it was just like, at that point, I was just like laughing. It was that funny, so on the nose, to me at least. And I don't think they were trying to be kind of self-aware. I just think they were being cheesy, and I don't know if they knew they were being cheesy, but really, who cares? There were some things that were like kind of more cringe than cheesy. The one example I can think of is Laura Dern saying that Jeff Goldblum slid into her DMs, which was kind of weird. Honestly, it's weird to hear her say it. But everything that came out of Jeff Goldblum's mouth was cheesy, but it was funny. And honestly, I think he made the movie. And that leads into my other point. I'm really glad with how much the original cast was in this movie. I mean, usually with legacy sequels, I mean, there's another example. Tom Cruise was in all of Top Gun Maverick, but he was just one person returning. I mean, there was Val Kilmer for one scene, and that's the reason Val Kilmer wasn't more in that movie was other circumstances, so I can't fault them for that. And Top Gun was a great movie. Top Gun Maverick was a great movie. But I'm just amazed at how much they brought back the original cast, because it's like something that we're not really used to with legacy sequels. Like, think of the sequel trilogy with Star Wars. Han Solo comes back for The Force Awakens, but not in a huge role. Princess Leia's not in a huge role at all. Neither is Chewie for the rest of the movies besides Force Awakens. And Luke is barely in Last Jedi, and then he dies. So I'm just glad that Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum were a part of this movie, and like in it, and like 80% of the movie, they were big characters, you know? Like, that's something you're not used to with legacy sequels, so I gotta give this movie a point for just that on its own. The dinosaurs looked really good, honestly. I was interested to see them come up with new and bigger dinosaurs, and honestly, I probably didn't recognize a lot of them. And it made me think, because one of them they mentioned was from the late Cretaceous period, and I remember seeing a TikTok, I think it was from Straw Hat Goofy, about this possibly not being the last movie. And honestly, it depends on how much fun this makes, but I could see them doing more movies. They said it was the end of the Jurassic era, so Straw Hat was saying maybe they do Cretaceous next, because that comes after Jurassic. I don't know about that. Cretaceous Park sounds kind of like a spoof of Jurassic Park, so I don't see it becoming or being in the same franchise as it. But we'll see what happens. I'm sure they'll make spin-offs if they don't make sequels. There are some cool references to other movies, like they have the whole death scene by the Dilophosaurus the same exact way it happens in the first movie. They have some pictures of some of the characters from Jurassic World, so that's pretty neat. There is one big thing that bugged me in this movie, which was that I know Fallen Kingdom is not the greatest installment. It's probably the worst installment in the Jurassic Park franchise, but what I liked about Fallen Kingdom was that twist with Macy Lockwood being the clone of Sir Lockwood, not his granddaughter. Well, technically sort of his granddaughter. It's kind of weird, but like I thought that was an awesome twist when that movie first came out. And then in this movie they just changed that and make it even more convoluted, which makes absolutely no sense. Like you could just leave it as what it was. It would have been a simple answer. Like they're like, no, we need Macy to actually have lived and never died in a car crash and actually got herself pregnant. Like, okay, they explained how Blue got herself pregnant because they spliced Blue with the genes from some animal that is able to reproduce by itself. But then how the heck was Macy's mom, Charlotte, able to reproduce by herself? Like, did she inject herself or splice her own DNA? Like, how does that work? They didn't even explain it. Like, they just made this plot twist even more convoluted than it needed to be. And I feel like they kind of retconned it, which really annoyed me, honestly. But other than that, this movie was pretty fine. I mean, it's a really enjoyable experience if you don't nitpick it too much. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 toilet paper rolls. See you next time.